Yeah, and it shouldn't take this long, so it doesn't look like it's executing. Well, this is supposed to be the easy part. Okay. So I'm almost positive my issue lies with this. It is sys native. Give me a second here. Just don't get it. Ah, I could potentially just be missing this. Now, I don't want to do system 32 though. I mean, it's worth a shot, but I know that sys native is where we want to go. Sys wild 64 is not where we want to go. Gets you 32-bit PowerShell, yep. Exactly. So syswild 64 is not what we want. Gets you a 2-bit PowerShell. We want a 64-bit PowerShell. Like, verify using this LS envelope. 32-bit version will show also architecture. Over. Yeah, so syswild 64 contains 32-bit. So we don't want syswild 64. We do want to keep sys native, which is what we have. But I am starting to think that there's something that we're missing, and I think it's the Windows. Now, instead of just doing research, I could just go ahead and just wing it. Just go ahead and type it in. I mean, we have nothing to lose here, but I do want to do the research. I want to keep sys native, keep it at Windows. C is correct. Yep, so there we go. So we do see here from a 32-bit PowerShell session to launch a 64-bit PowerShell. Use C Windows System Native Windows PowerShell v1 PowerShell.exe. So that's what we're using. And then this is if you are on a 64-bit and you want 32-bit, then you do syswild 64. But we want sys native. We want that 64-bit session there. And I was missing the Windows directory, so we're just going straight to sys native. My mistake for just taking something off the internet and running with it. But let's go ahead and execute that now. The correct directory, we should get execution, which is what we do. I don't know why I pulled it 4 times. It's probably a good reason. Nothing seems like it blew up yet, so let's just let it roll. Took my session, took my shell. And in my shell, I remember we had that reverse flag, my IP address, listening on this port. And we have a shell, so who am I? Oh, hello. Not sure what I did there. Oh, not sure what's going on here. So that's probably something did blow up, I guess. All I'm doing is typing in a W. Let me make sure I don't have like sticky keys or something on. Yeah, not sure what's going on here. Okay, so this shell's like bugged out. So let me do that one last time. Alright, so connecting. There we go. And I'm not sure what's going on. This is supposed to be the easy part. Really? Alright, so let's go ahead and check out what's going on. Let's go on the Shang directory. Nope, let's actually bring it back one. I'm gonna actually go through our shell.ps1. I'm just gonna cat it actually. I don't want to make any changes. And let me take a look at that. Why is it pulling it 4 times? I must be doing something here. I really should not be pulling it 4 times. I highly doubt that did anything, but I just cannot figure out why. Let me serve it off a different port. I'll do 8080's burp. So well, I'm not using burp, so I'm gonna go with 8080 for now. Let me reserve it off a different port too. Port 8080 is where we're gonna serve these files from. I don't think the average person is gonna run into the issues I'm running into now. Normally speaking, you should have just been able to put this in, execute your command with, you know, the correct architecture there, and invoke your expression. You would have got a shell pop like me. You wish had no issues, but for some reason when I type in my shell, it's giving me weird errors. So we're going to invoke PowerShell TCP -reverse IP address 25.1337. I'm going to change the port on this. We're going to serve off a different port, and let's go ahead and listen off a different port. So instead of port elite, we're going to listen on port Bob. Port Bob. Alright. So let's netcat LVMP on port Bob. What am I thinking? Of course not. Port Bob. Let's do port 2020. So we're listening on port 2020, and our shell should be sending them to port 2020. So that's good. We're serving on port 8080, so let's go ahead and correct our execution. 8080. Execute. It's still grabbing it 4 times. That deeply worries me. I'm still getting my shell. Who am I? Alright, it works now. Apparently not. The term W is not recognized as the name of a CMD let. Sysinfo. And now every time I type something, it's giving me an issue. I think this is an issue with me personally, or this box. Maybe the box just needs to get reverted. But I'm not sure what's going on here. DWE, yeah. Something's going on here. It is fishy. But let's go ahead and see what I can do about this. As mentioned, if I don't run it as a 64-bit shell, I run into issues. Actually put this in my notes, by the way. 1 second. see what happens. It's not smart, but I'm just curious to see if I do it like this, even though I know this is not a 64-bit session, a 64-bit process there, and I won't really be able to continue with my produce escalation later down the line. I do want to see what's giving me this issue, because I feel like this issue is something related to me. Oh yeah, something's going on here. I have a feeling I know what it is. This thing with VMware with, I think, the tools or something like that. Ruining the experience, VMware. I'm almost positive this is where the issue lies. Let me see if I can just type it in here. Who am I? Copy this and maybe just... I don't think I'll paste in a shell, will it? Huh. This is a little ridiculous. It's working. I'm not exactly sure why. So the issues with my keyboard for some reason. The connection between my keyboard and this virtual machine doesn't appear that it's necessarily the shell. But now that I'm here, let me look at this information. Let me invoke expression. No, it won't. Alright. So I'm going to go back. I'm going to go ahead and get a 64-bit cell session, and I'm just going to copy and paste everything. That's clearly the way to go today. Clear this out. Let's go back and listen to our port 2020 and execute our command on a 64-bit process. Yum yum yum, eating up my shell and popping that shell any second now. When it feels like it. Wrong port, wrong port. Good job, me. There we go. Now, out of curiosity, I'm going to try typing again. Oh, there we go. Yep. Okay, so off that system info, let me see if it'll let me paste it. We can see some good information here on the machine, such as the hotfixes. Now, I'm actually going to go ahead and execute a script called Sherlock. So it's actually going to check out all these hotfixes here, but it's going to actually check for certain vulnerabilities. So instead of me going through these hotfixes one by one, checking out what these patches were, or cross-checking any exploits I do find. I know people who use Metasploit, what they'll use at this point, now that they let the music go there. So I know some people, once they get a foothold with a Meteor session, at this point what they'll do is they'll use something called a search recon. So, you know, if anybody's using Meterpreter right now and you just got your shell or you just got your Meterpreter session, at this point what I'm gonna do is the same as you, going search suggester, for example, to get exploit suggestion. This is a tool called Sherlock. It's quite similar, not 100% similar, but quite similar. So you guys can go to Sherlock GitHub and actually download everything from there. I've used this before, so I don't have to look through the code again or anything like that. Plus it is reputable. I mean, Sherlock is reputable. So I'm gonna go ahead and go use my Opti directory. I'm gonna sudo git clone this GitHub URL, and then I'm gonna go into my Sherlock directory. So in here we have Sherlock.py. Is this what I want? Mm, no, we do not want Python. So if you ever search, look for the one that's from Ross the Mouse. Yeah, look for the one from Ross the Mouse. I do apologize for that. I was looking at that. I was like, Python. I think we're using Python right now. Hold on. What is it? I'm not even too worried about that, honestly. This is a live session. I don't even really care too much about that. And I just did it again. Great. Did 2 Sherlocks. Beautiful. Oh, good. We weren't in the right directory though, so it's okay if we ruin it a bit. So it'll get close. It's all gonna revert once I close this out. Alright, so in our desktop we have a folder called Sherlock. So I'm going to go ahead and go into Sherlock, see what we got working on in here in Sherlock.ps1. So I can actually open this up for everybody on this web browser. See what's going on in here. So there is essentially a bunch of functions that you can call out for. I specifically want to look for one function called find all, if I'm not mistaken, or find all vons. So there we go. Function find all vons is what I want to use. So I'm going to copy this function, find all vons. It's going to go ahead and search for these. They have different exploits depending on what your mission is, what your goal is, what you're trying to achieve. As you can see, different functions. I'm going to go ahead and keep with find all vons. So I'm actually going to vim this Sherlock.ps1. Go to the bottom of this one like we did with our original shell, our Nishang shell. I'm going to insert this here at the bottom. Find all vons. Alright. Oops. Writing quit. Cannot do that. Give me one moment. Sudo ch own. I think this is user, right? Yep. Sherlock. Is it a capital S? Yes, it is. So now it should be good to let me write this. I am devastatingly dehydrated right now. I am absolutely parched. Just go ahead and get this script running, and I will go ahead and get some water in a moment. Okay, so I'm going to stop serving off of this folder since we already have our shell. I don't need to go ahead and serve that anymore. I will go ahead and serve off this main directory of Sherlock. Because I want to serve Sherlock.ps1, so I'm going to run my HTTP server off that, Sherlock.ps1. We can already remember that we did edit it correctly, so it's going to find all vons. Let's go ahead and see what we get. So from here, since I can't type for some reason, can I? Nope, I cannot. I'm just going to type it out in here. I'm going to invoke all expression, new object, net.webclient, download string, HTTP 10.10.10, 10.10.14.25 is my IP, and I'm serving on port 80 right now. Sherlock.ps1 is what I want to serve. So let's go ahead and close this out. Copy. Go back to our shell, which I hope I did not lose. Oof. Oof is all I gotta say about that. This is devastatingly, uncomfortably difficult for no reason. Put some music on here.
Hey everyone, this is Robbie East. You're listening to my guest mix for Future House Music to celebrate their 1 million subscribers.
Alright.
I've selected some of my favorites from the label, a few FHM classics, and also some exclusives for you in this mix. Hope you enjoy.
Get this shell back here in a second. Why you can't be unorganized, guys, because I think it's just a live session, but then you have to go back and you gotta use stuff again. So I'm gonna just serve really quick sudo python, a simple HTTP server on this folder really quick. That's why I turned this one off temporarily. It does look like I gotta get my netcat shell back, unfortunately. My terribly bad netcat shell, I do gotta get that back. Serving that directory really quick so I can re-execute this command and get that shell. I call this simple HTTP for the shell, because why not? It's gonna be simple HTTP for the Sherlock, because why not? It's a really gross way to do it, but why not? And I am getting an error now. Oof, so I could have potentially crashed the box, which... complete accident. Yeah, so I crashed the box, which is fine. I wanted to restart it anyway because I was not comfortable with typing everything out, copy and pasting it. I mean, this is just such a rough, this is such a scuffed stream. I'm gonna reset this machine. Machine's not active on this lab. Yeah, this we got a little messed up here. That machine got off, so let's turn it back on and get to it. While this turns back on, I am going to get some water. Drop something in the chat saying getting hydrated. While this bad boy turns back on. Was I even listening on Netcat? I'm gonna go back to listening on Netcat. And it's serving there. So while that turns on, I'm gonna get water. So when I come back, I can just hit enter here. Be good to go. Here, back. Listen to this good music. Alright, man, feels good to get hydrated, right? Alright. So, machine should be back online. Go ahead and execute this again so we can get our initial foothold, our initial shell. Boom, code execution worked. Got our shell. Still took it 4 times. Really uncomfortable about that. Look at that, it's connecting, and we got our shell. Let's see if it lets me type. Who am I? And nope, it will not. Not sure why it's doing that, but that's fine. I'm prepared. I am prepared. The question is, do I want to go through the rest of the scripting and all that like this? Oof, it's rough. Whatever. It's a live machine, so I can't really reboot the machine either. It's not really a suitable option for me. So we were using Sherlock. Got our initial shell. So I'm actually going to stop serving on that. Go back to serving in here, where I can get Sherlock PS1. So I'm going to invoke a new expression. New object, net.webClient. In case you haven't seen me typing this a few times, this is what I'm using to grab and execute my string of my file through PowerShell. Net.webClient.download string, my IP address to my machine, which is 1425. I'm serving on port 80, and I want to give them this file, Sherlock.ps1. Go ahead and close it out, copy it, and paste it, because this is how we're doing it here today. And it should execute that, in which it did. So make this a little bit bigger. Temporarily, I will actually just make it a lot bigger. I am going to copy this anyway and put it in my report here. But you can see what it did is it executed this Sherlock.PowerShell script, and this just searched for these certain exploits, right? So we see that this is not supported on 64-bit machines. This is not vulnerable. This is not supported. So all the way down the list, it's going to keep saying this basically not vulnerable until we see here that 3 exploits that are vulnerable. So Sherlock's PowerShell script basically ran on this shell that we had, not as a system shell, but as a user shell. We have these exploits. So let's go ahead and run the first one. Let me copy these really quick though. Just post this in my report really quick, which is missing a lot because I don't dare execute the most basic of commands right now because it will just ruin everything. So let's just stay with mission critical commands. And I'll just type this in the Sherlock report, right? Sherlock results. And I'm going to go ahead and use this one here. So let's check out this exploit. I'm going to just go ahead and wall this out. Make this small again. So we see that by this exploit, we have the local privilege escalation. So we do want to do privilege escalation. That's preferably what we want. So function invoke ms16032. So the synopsis basically says PowerShell implementation of this exploit targets vulnerable operating systems that support PowerShell v2. Version 2 plus. These are the targets. I did a system info earlier. I should just do it again. System info. I do gotta copy and paste it though. System info, and I do want to copy this. I did get to show the hotfixes, but I didn't get to show all the other stuff. So just off writing this on this user shell. If I were to type who am I would say that we're Costas. And I'm actually going to copy this stuff, including the hotfixes, and include this into the report. Minus some. Yikes. So it should show that it's a 64-bit architecture in this report here. There we go, a 64-bit based PC. And we're running Windows Server 2012 revision 2 standard 2012. So let's just make sure this really quick. It runs on Windows 7 through 10 and 2012. 32-bit and 64-bit, which we have 64-bit, and it's actually been tested on 32-bit Windows 7 and 64-bit Windows 8, 64-bit Windows 2012 revision 2, which is literally exactly what we have. So this looks like the exploit we want to go to, hence why Sherlock said this was vulnerable to it. And then this is the example it gives us. Invoke MS16. That doesn't look correct. Actually, you know what? So we're going to use the same exploit, except we are going to be using one that's provided by Empire. Empire exploit. So if you want, you could actually type in Empire PowerShell GitHub. So we're going to be sticking with the same exploit here. We're going to use the MS16. I think it's 130. But we're going to use the Empire project. So I believe what Empire did is they used that same script, except they just modified it a bit. And then I'm just going to copy this link. Once I copy this folder down to the machine that we're running on now, I'm going to go into the data, and then I'm going to go into module source. We're going to see all these great things we can do. Recon, privilege escalation is exactly what we want to do. So if we go into privilege, you'll see the exploit we were literally just looking at. See, edited M16032 exploit for Empire. So they edited that script that we were just using. The reason why we couldn't use that is that if you look through that code, it's assuming we have a physical machine to access. So like we have the GUI, the GUI there for PowerShell. So we don't. We only have this command line. So Empire, they actually edited it for us. So it's the same code, it's the same synopsis, same everything, except it's just a bit different. So I'm going to use this example. I'm going to copy this. Same thing here. Remember how we used to have the you know, copy the function and post it at the bottom, things like that. I'm gonna copy this at the bottom of this script and paste it. Obviously I changed this to the same shell, so I'm actually gonna make a second shell of our Nashang shell and post it towards a different port, because what I want to do is I want to get another netcast session running on a different port, except on this shell I'm gonna open up the other shell, except that second shell is gonna be exploited using this exploit to give me privilege escalation using the MS16032 privilege escalation exploit. So that second shell that I open up on a different port will come with system instead of user. First shell, the Nashang shell. Just letting the music go. So that first Nashang shell was just a user shell. So if I run that same shell through this exploit, that shell should be a system shell. That's why I said it was very important that in the initial time where we executed this initial shell, right? I said, hey, don't forget to include this part. Because if you don't include this part and you just, you know, you either use syswow or use just PowerShell, it's not going to be a 64-bit process. It's going to be a 32-bit process, and odds are, you know, based off my experience, you're not going to be able to successfully run this command and get system shell. You're just going to keep getting a user shell, and you're going to be scratching your head against the wall and banging it against the wall. You have to run your initial shell, this one, our buggy little shell here, at 64-bit. Alright, otherwise this exploit will not give you system when you open up that second shell. So let's go ahead and get into it. So I'm gonna go ahead and open up this over here on my opti folder. I'm gonna sudo git clone the Empire script over here. And honestly, just because out of laziness, I'm just gonna serve it out of the folder. Never really done it like ever like this. I've never done it like this. Usually what I like to do is copy the scripts and put them somewhere else and make edits on those copies. But since this is a live machine and I'm already this machine's just so buggy, can't wait to turn it off. I'm just gonna ruin it as we install things on it, so not worried about that, which is not good practice whatsoever. So do the opposite of that and you should be good to go in terms of good habits. So we want to go into the data directory as earlier, and we want to go into the module source directory as earlier. And honestly, if all goes well, this is technically the quote-unquote the hard part. This is the fun part in my opinion, but this should technically go by very fast if all goes well. So just give me one moment here, guys. I'm just doing something. There we go. All right. All right. So we are working with this one, right? So let's not cat it. I'm sorry. We're gonna invoke